What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin. There's not really too much to touch on as since I said sometime right around here on Bitcoin's price, roughly mid-November, after Bitcoin had finally broken this long-term, roughly 8-9 month resistance here, somewhere around 70, approximately 70k, finally finding this support above here, flipping this resistance into support, then finally broke up here towards approximately 90k. This then leading into around mid-November, and as I said, I think what was going to be most likely is that from this point onward right here, Bitcoin would just slowly waver upwards. The volatility would start to die down, the volume would start to die down a bit, but ultimately Bitcoin would continue to start to go up here. Again, very similar to what we saw back here during the prior impulse of the Bitcoin bull market, whenever it finally started heading up from around 25k around mid-September towards around 30, 31, 32k, hit around 35k approximately, just slowly wavered upwards, had this bump here, which is what I think we will be seeing over the next, it could be, we could already be beginning this for Bitcoin. This impulse could be, as right now, zooming in here, not necessarily an impulse, but this bump up in price that we're seeing right here, right now is currently higher than it was going all the way back to roughly the beginning of December on the 5th. So right now Bitcoin is at the highest prices it's ever seen, roughly around $105.1 thousand. Ultimately, this support right here that goes all the way back to the around 50k back here, whenever we saw Bitcoin see a pretty significant drop at the beginning of August. Ever since then, as I've been pointing out, there's been this uptrend on the RSI. It was very briefly broken, but ultimately it did hold, which was coinciding with the brief break of this uptrend zone here, where we saw the price with two candles close below the 50 EMA band, very similar to, again, going back to this prior impulse, so the second impulse of the current bull market for Bitcoin. We saw something very similar right here, late November of 2023, where we did see this one candle briefly close below the 50 EMA band, but ultimately bounced back up and reclaimed it and continued to move into this bump in price here. And then we saw this kind of intermediate consolidation period right here, roughly halfway into that second impulse. And again, as I was saying, I believe that's what we'll be seeing here shortly, and potentially we could be seeing the beginning of it, as Bitcoin, as I said, is already at its highest highs in its history. There potentially could be one more move down towards the downside here. Maybe it continues to go sideways a bit and ultimately just essentially breaks this sideways horizontal resistance right here, just at approximately 105k. So we could see some more sideways action, maybe come down and test this support zone once more along the 50 EMA in its band. But ultimately, I do think over the next, maybe in the next few days, as I've been saying, maybe it takes a couple more weeks, maybe it takes over the next month or two to finally see this bump up in price. But I believe once we do see that, it will head towards around 115 to 130k, as I've been saying. And I went over this chart in the last update video for Bitcoin. But first thing I want to point out here is if we look down here at the RSI, again, this is very much so in comparison to, as I already pointed on the 6 hour, going back to around roughly mid-November 2023. We saw the RSI moving up from the lows here, breaking up into the overbought or oversold territory. Not the oversold, but the overbought territory. And then very similar to, again, we see roughly mid-November, just a year later, the RSI heads from the lows all the way up to the overbought territory, prints a pink dot as in a rejection, not necessarily a rejection in the case of price, but the RSI ends up moving towards the downside below the horizontal overbought trend at around 78, 79 on the RSI value. So far with the recent, as the new week just opened up, this new 2-day candle just opened up as well, we've seen the RSI move back above this horizontal trend here, which I think is very much so going to be like what happened here towards the end of November 2023, as Bitcoin was ending this just roughly 45-degree gradual build up towards the going to the past fib retracement, the 1.272 just as we are seeing right here, we're seeing this gradual, just roughly 45-degree angle buildup right towards the 1.272, as I mentioned in the last video. And assuming that this continues to follow as it has ever since roughly mid-November, so it's been about a month so far that this has been playing out basically exactly as it did this prior instance in the second impulse. As I've been saying, I think it's very likely that we will see a move up towards around this is the 1.457, anywhere between the 1.457 to the 1.618. So that would be anywhere from around approximately 121,000 up towards 145,000. Now I think what will happen is we'll see something more along these lines, assuming this plays out. We'll see Bitcoin kind of go up here for the first bump, maybe roughly halfway in between the 1.457, anywhere from around 120 to 130K, with 115K being a lower number that's also potential as well. Then we'll see some correction here, and then eventually over time it will then have another move back up towards the 1.618, which would be corresponsive to this portion right here around mid-January of 2024 during the second impulse, as it went up towards the 1.618 of the prior fib extension here. So we could see for the first bump here move up anywhere from around 115, 130K. Then we'll see some correction, as I pointed out. Then we'll see a move up towards around maybe 140 to 145K at the 1.618. Then I think, assuming all this continues to play out, we'll then see a move down towards here, the 1.382, as this is what happened during the last time here. As you can see, when Bitcoin moved from around 48K here down all the way to around approximately 39, 40K. From around early January to late January of 2024. Ultimately, the prior 1.382 is what held this support, and the current 1.382 sits at around 110,000. Now, I definitely do think there's room for it to move a little bit lower, because you do see this wicked move down just shy of the 1.272 back here during this prior fib extension, and the current 1.272 sits at approximately 100K, maybe even down to around like 99.5K. So I think what we could see here to fully paint this out is, again, this move here up towards maybe 130K at highest. We'll see some correction down, not too much, maybe towards 110K or so, 115K or so, depending upon how high it goes in the first place. Then we'll see another move upwards towards 140, 145K. Then we'll see another move down, potentially as low as the 1.272, as I mentioned, and then after this we'll then see the final move all the way up to, I think potentially as high, maybe even upwards towards 300K. I haven't really been too entertained of that price target. I definitely do think it's likely, as I've been leaning more towards around 170 to 230K for the various reasons I've gone over, the historical fib extensions that aren't these on this current chart that I've gone over in recent videos, and videos going back on a multi-month, even though probably over a year at this point. But if we, again, taking these two fib extensions here for both of these impulses, we can see that the second impulse moved all the way up to the just shy of the 2.272. So if we see that follow in suit, just as so far it appears that Bitcoin is mimicking the fib extension back here. Well, we see again this third impulse that we are currently on right here move all the way up towards just shy of the 2.272, which sits somewhere around 290 to 300K. So that could definitely end up happening as well. But as I said, there's not really too much to go over. Really everything that I've gone over just further elaborates on what I have been saying since around mid-November of this year, seeing, as we have seen so far, this gradual build-up, which I think is going to be culminating here soon. And just to take this time measurement here once more, this prior buildup will lasted around 18, 19, 20 bars or so, roughly 40 days before we did see this bump here for the Bitcoin price from around 37 upwards towards 45K. The second impulse, and so far this current gradual buildup has been 17 bars, pushing 40 days, as I've been saying. So if we see a similar time frame elapse here, then we are very close, as I've been saying, just roughly a week or so away from this bump that I believe we will more than likely not end up seeing here soon for Bitcoin. But as I said, that was all that I wanted to go over. Again, as always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
regret now.